The violence is tearing our neighborhood down, plain and simple, tearing us apart.
An argument leads to shots fired on a bus. One juvenile hurt, another in custody. Fox 45 News questions city leadership's sense of urgency in fighting crime, while one councilman fights to save his district. Protesters attempt to shut down the second virtual Johns Hopkins Police Forum. How university leaders responded to their concerns. Hurricane Ian regains strength, the damage done as the storm now lashes the East Coast. Meteorologist Amy Aronson will time out when the heaviest downpours arrive here and how long they'll last.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 10.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Mary Bubala.
I'm Kai Jackson. It's been a violent week in Baltimore. At least 18 people have been shot since Sunday, including one wounded on a city bus this afternoon. And more than half of those people were shot in just the past 2 days alone, including 2 people in Fells Point and a juvenile riding a bus at the Mondawmin Transit Station just today. Keith Daniels spoke with residents frustrated with the relentless crime. He joins us live right now with their calls to save the city. Keith?
Well, Kai and Mary, for some residents, it's all about urgency in controlling the violent crime, that feeling of an immediate response to get things under control. And tonight, there's another reason to be concerned. A shooting at a bus stop at the Mondawmin bus loop. Gunfire with someone shot on the bus.
All you can see is everyone surrounding the bus.
It happened at about 3 o'clock this afternoon at one of the city's most busiest transportation hubs. MTA police say 2 juveniles were fighting on the bus when one pulled a gun, shot the other. Daquan Jackson was sitting nearby outside the bus just before and after the shooting.
I didn't see it, but I know there was other people in front that was in front of me that could see it. And then all the police and everybody shut the whole station off.
The young victim survived, part of one of the city's latest violent crime scenes. As of Thursday morning, Baltimore had seen 254 homicides so far this year, with 560 non-fatal shootings so far this year. At the bus stop, Douglas Stewart Sr.
Property is no good in this neighborhood.
Agitated over the continued violence with this cost of lives and livelihoods.
What about this neighborhood? The whole city needs to be saved. The whole city, not just one neighborhood.
The bus stop shooting comes one day after a city council hearing focused on the police department's crime-fighting strategies. The efforts, they say, focused on the Western Police District, with data showing positive change in that district. But what about the people in other communities?
You know, when will everyone get their gift of a perfectly safe neighborhood? I can't say. I would love for that to happen yesterday.
Fox 45 News pressed Mark Conway, the chair of the City Council's Public Safety Committee, on when other neighborhoods could expect their turn.
This is a very difficult task. We're dealing with violence in the city that we've been dealing with for multiple decades. We're not going to come in and change this overnight.
Well, the councilman admitting it will take time, but confident it will happen. We're live tonight. Keith Daniels, Fox 45 News.
Keith, thank you. Well, Fox 45 News is questioning the city's new deputy mayor for public safety, Anthony Barksdale, about the recent crime. 560 people have survived shootings this year, a staggering number, and that's 36 more than this time last year. Violent crime is one of the biggest concerns we hear from people. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost brought those concerns to Barksdale.
Today, Baltimore is 1 homicide under last year. We started the month at, I believe, 52 shootings, non-fatal. Today we're at 38 maybe, so there's a reduction. I base how I view things on the data, and that data says that we're going in the right direction.
Is 1 homicide fewer, though, really something to praise?
1 homicide fewer means we're going the right way. Imagine if I was saying we're plus 22 or 20, whatever it was when I started. We're trending in the right direction. Of course, there's room for progress, so I'm not arguing with you on that point. But -1 is a start.
And that brings us to our question of the day. Do you think Baltimore City political leaders are ignoring the crime problem? So far, 96% of those who voted say yes. Head to foxbaltimore.com/vote to weigh in. Elsewhere in a city in crisis, there was another town hall to talk about a campus police force at Johns Hopkins. This one also met with more protests. Now, this second protest comes a week after the first meeting was met with similar protests. And Fox 45's Jeff Abel was there for both discussions. He joins us right now with more. Jeff?
Well, Kai, there was far more disruption than discussion tonight. In fact, depending on how you attended, after 30 minutes, many people had headed right back home. For the second time, the university opened its doors for a town hall meeting. But not everyone in town was interested in meeting.
Excited to talk to you today.
Johns Hopkins administrators were prepared to answer questions about plans to form a police department, a dedicated armed police force to tackle crime that's creeping into the Baltimore campuses.
We're impacted by assaults, we're impacted by robberies, and even murders here on our East Baltimore campus. I have individuals who come here to work who are afraid to come from the parking garage into the building.
There's already incidences of university police going beyond their reach. I know people personally have been discriminated, and introducing guns into that equation is not a good idea.
But just like a similar meeting last week, protesters turned up the volume again tonight, even shielding the big screen projector where no one could view administrators who were addressing the crowd.
I'm not going to say they're crazy, they've been misguided.
I respect their ability to protest and make their noise and do what they did, but let everybody else come out and have a voice at a town hall meeting.
Have you been interfering in that respect?
That's understandable, but there's way more residents who don't want the police.
After 30 minutes, the university shut down its auditorium, allowing the meeting to continue online. Many residents who came here for an education went home with a new round of frustration.
They're not shutting nobody down. They're not shutting Johns Hopkins down, because when people really see what's really going on, they're going to want to be safe. They're not safe.
There will be one more town hall scheduled for tomorrow night. This one will be all virtual, all the time. We are live at Hopkins tonight. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
Jeff, thank you. And Fox 45 News has looked at crime in areas around JHU's police department and that they would patrol. Well, the day after last week's forum was disrupted, a man was shot right by the East Baltimore Medical Campus. And that was one of dozens of crimes that just this year within the proposed patrol boundaries. You can see that reporting right now on foxbaltimore.com.
Lawyers for Baltimore City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby filed a motion today opposing a gag order in her federal trial. Mosby is facing 4 federal charges, 2 for perjury and 2 for making false statements on loan applications stemming from her purchase of 2 homes in Florida. Now, prosecutors called for a gag order after Mosby's defense attorney held a news conference following the hearing where the trial was postponed. Mosby team claims the jury pool has already been infected, citing reporting from Fox 45 News. You can find more on this latest filing on our website, foxbaltimore.com.
And now I've lost my only home, so I'm packing it up.
I'm devastated. I'm just in shock. I'm in awe over such destruction.
Devastation in Florida after Hurricane Ian flattens a great deal of the state. The images coming out of Florida are stunning. Neighborhoods are underwater and countless buildings have been leveled. Now, on the top right of your screen, you can see the storm surge and sustained high winds crushed boats and pushed many into each other. On the bottom right, a boat is sandwiched in between apartment buildings. This is insane.
And this is what we know about the aftermath of the hurricane. At least 15 people are dead, but officials fear that number could be much higher. Search and rescue crews are working to find people trapped in their homes right now. People are stranded on Sanibel Island, but it's not clear how many. Parts of the road that connects the island to the mainland have been completely washed away. President Biden approved a major disaster declaration for Florida, freeing up aid for recovery efforts. And the governors of Georgia, North and South Carolina have all issued a state of emergency. Now the hurricane is headed for the Carolinas. A live look from Myrtle Beach shows waves picking up. Hurricane flags are up on the sand. Meteorologist Amy Aronson's tracking the storm's path for us. Amy?
Yeah, and that's exactly where it's headed, Mary. If we take a look at the latest update from the National Hurricane Center, it is back to a Category 1 in strength. That means it's producing max sustained winds of 75 miles an hour. It is currently traveling north-northeast at 10 miles an hour, but eventually it's going to curve to the northwest here, and then that's what's going to direct it right towards the South Carolina coast tomorrow afternoon. And the track shows that in advance of that, they already have hurricane warnings out for coastal locations. That's all the reds and purples you're seeing here. Once the storm moves onshore, it will eventually weaken again and eventually become a remnant low. But that's when it becomes our issue. And that's going to be the case now as early as tomorrow evening. That's when the first rain showers arrive, with the heaviest rain actually appearing here late Friday night into early Saturday morning. 1 to 3 inches is what we're calling for, and that rainfall total will take us through early next week. We could also see some gusty winds with winds up to 20, 30 miles an hour. Coming up in 20 minutes, we'll take a closer look at the timeline of the rain for the weekend, and I'll let you know exactly what it means for all your outdoor weekend plans. Mary, hi.
Amy, thank you. Well, the Fells Point Fun Festival was supposed to take place in Baltimore this weekend, but it's been postponed because of that wind and rain expected this weekend from Ian. The new dates will likely be October 28th through the 30th. The Ocean's Calling Music Festival in Ocean City has also been canceled. Now stay with Fox 45 News. Our team of meteorologists will continue to track the storm as it moves toward our area. Wake up with Fox 45 Morning News for the very latest.
Next on Fox 45 News at 10, a Maryland couple accused of trying to spy for Russia. How they were caught and the information feds say a Hopkins doctor was on the verge of sharing. Plus, new developments in the case of Adnan Syed and the murder of Heyman Lee. The evidence under review right now as Lee's family seeks justice. And we continue to track Hurricane Ian. Communities completely unrecognizable. The damage done as the storm gathers strength again and lashes the East Coast when the intense downpours arrive here coming up.
Making headlines at Johns Hopkins, anesthesiologist and her spouse, a transgender Army doctor, are under federal indictment for allegedly trying to share information with the Russian government.
Fox 45's Amy Simpson has a closer look at the case.
Court filings say the pair met multiple times last month with who they thought was a Russian official, but that person was really an undercover FBI agent. Johns Hopkins anesthesiologist Dr. Anna Gabrielian and her spouse, U.S. Army Major Jamie Lee Henry, are facing federal charges, accused of attempting to pass medical information to the Russian government. According to the indictment dated September 28th, Henry is a doctor stationed at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, holding a secret security clearance. And Gabrielian's online profile with Johns Hopkins lists Russian as one of her spoken languages. Court documents say the alleged conspiracy began last month on August 17th when the couple met with an undercover agent at a Baltimore hotel. Henry told the undercover agent they wanted to assist Russia and had looked into even joining the Russian army after the start of the war in Ukraine. The indictment says the couple offered to provide private medical records, meeting again with the undercover agent in Baltimore August 24th. And in a meeting at a Gaithersburg hotel on August 31st, the indictment says the duo did share medical information related to multiple active duty, retired, or spouses of Department of Defense individuals, records they indicated the Russian government could use for exploitation. Henry was featured in a BuzzFeed article back in 2015, identifying them as the first out transgender active duty U.S. Army officer, a Twitter profile connected to the same name, and identifying as a transgender military physician, showing a mix of military and medical tweets as recently as this summer.
That was Amy Simpson reporting. Now, in a statement to Fox 45 News, Johns Hopkins Medicine says, quote, "We were shocked to learn about this news this morning and intend to fully cooperate with investigators." Meanwhile, Matt Leonard, a spokesperson for the U.S. Army, says this is an open case and we are referring you to the Department of Justice, end quote.
Well, 6 people are facing multiple charges, including dealing fentanyl and gun charges. Maryland Attorney General Brian Frost says they were part of a criminal enterprise. Some of those suspects are charged with as many as 58 counts. Frost says the group was responsible for several violent crimes.
There was turmoil within the organization at times. Malik Moody attempted to steal drugs and money from one of the leaders of the enterprise, Joanne Fulton. And in retaliation, Moody was assaulted. He was thrown out of the enterprise and told that the only way he could re-enter would be to kill his accomplices in the attempted robbery.
Attorney General Frost says Maryland Strike Force 7, led by Maryland State Police, found these suspects. They also recovered a large amount of fentanyl and handguns.
Well, the Baltimore City State's Attorney's Office is waiting for results of DNA testing. State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby says the results will determine if she recharges Adnan Syed.
Yet the family of Heyman Lee is taking action now, filing an appeal. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost spoke with Lee's family attorney and has the latest moves in court.
The attorney for Heyman Lee's brother, Steve Kelly, tells me that he believes that Judge Melissa Finn violated the victim's rights when they did not allow enough time for the victim's family to come from the West Coast to Baltimore and participate in the hearing. And now Kelly says he's asking a court to pause this case while the appeal process plays out. Woodlawn High School student Heyman Lee killed in 1999. Adnan Syed convicted of a murder. State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby filing a motion to overturn that conviction, citing evidence she says the defense never had. Syed's conviction overturned last Monday. Syed walking out of the courthouse without shackles, on home detention until Mosby decides what to do next. New video posted to social media showing life outside of prison for Syed.
The appeal is very centered on victims' rights.
Steve Kelly, the attorney for Heyman Lee's brother, Young Lee, says Judge Melissa Finn violated the victim's rights when she did not provide enough notice for them to show up in court in person.
Giving someone a half a day's notice and expecting them to show up and speak without having heard anything about what this is all about, that's not really respecting the victim's rights in any meaningful way.
Kelly says the judge gave the Lee family less than 1 business day of notice to travel from the West Coast to Baltimore, and he says that's not good enough.
I think the violations are pretty clear.
Kelly says the filing is the first step to get Maryland's Court of Special Appeals to look at whether Judge Finn violated the law. Mosby's office has 30 days to decide whether new charges will be filed against Syed, and that's why Kelly says there should be a pause in this case.
We don't want anything else to happen in the case until the appellate court has weighed in on it. That's really where their focus is. Will any justice ever be done for Hay or not?
Marilyn Mosby's office did not respond to a request for a comment about this latest move, but her office has said that Lee's family was involved in the process from their view as it played out. In the meantime, no court dates have been set. In Baltimore, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Fox 45 News will continue to follow this case and bring you any updates as they become available. You can follow along on air and on our website, foxbaltimore.com.
Hurricane Ian now barreling toward the Carolinas. How people there are getting ready.
And survivors of Hurricane Ian are sharing their terrifying and heartbreaking stories. That's coming up in 3 minutes. We'll take you to Fort Myers for a look at how people are trying to move forward.
And Ian's heading our direction next. Our rain chances are going to increase as a result, especially over the weekend. Coming up next on Fox 45 News at 10, I'll show you when we are expecting the heaviest rain here and what it means for your weekend plans.
Well, tracking Hurricane Ian, the National Hurricane Center urges coastal communities in Georgia and the Carolinas to make their final preparations right now. This is what you're seeing on the left side of the screen, which is Charleston, South Carolina, boarding up as the seawall is reinforced.
And on the right, a look again from Myrtle Beach, which is on the edge of that cone of uncertainty. They do have the warning flags on the beach entrances as the entire shoreline of South Carolina is under a hurricane warning.
While Hurricane Ian is poised to make an Atlantic coast landfall, Florida is just starting to survey the damage from the storm, which was yesterday.
Exactly, and there's so much damage. Stephen Quinn with our Sinclair sister station reports from Fort Myers, Florida.
The damage from Hurricane Ian here in Fort Myers Beach is simply catastrophic, and it is the same dangerous story on the other barrier islands. Right now, the only way to get north to Sanibel Island is by air. Coast Guard planes and helicopters right now running rescue missions to anyone who still might be on those islands. For those who made it out of Hurricane Ian, they are grateful.
The winds were so strong, you couldn't even come out your house. If you would have got blown down.
Judy Curry has called Fort Myers her home all her life. She has friends and loved ones here, but she doesn't know if they're alive.
I got a phone, but it won't let you call nobody.
The death toll is uncertain, but public officials have said they do expect fatalities as they brace the public for the true scope of Hurricane Ian's toll. The storm surge left Brian Peck waiting through his Fort Myers Beach home until he was forced to retreat to the second story as the storm surge inched closer to where he was.
I think this is going to change the Fort Myers Beach forever. It's a whole new, so many things are going to have to start over. It's going to take years probably to get back to normal.
The work begins right now here in Fort Myers Beach. This bridge now shut off to anyone except crews working to try to clean up and assess the damage here, and it is certainly catastrophic. In Fort Myers Beach, Stephen Quinn reporting.
We are so concerned about our children.
Worried parents make their voices heard at a town hall in Baltimore County. We see new video of fights in schools. We'll tell you what county leaders are trying to do.
The Department of Public Works in the hot seat once again. The question city leaders had in a second hearing about the recent E. coli water contamination. Those stories, much more, coming up in just 3 minutes.
Baltimore County leaders are addressing a crisis in Baltimore County classrooms. Parents are making their voices heard during a town hall.
That's right. Riel Creighton joins us live with what happened tonight and some new videos of school fights. Riel?
Yeah, Kai and Mary, it was hosted by the Baltimore County Parent and Student Coalition, and they came together tonight for a town hall to tackle a broad range of issues in county schools, everything from transportation to school lunches, but it ended with personal accounts of threats and violence happening in the schools that seemed to absorb all of the oxygen in the conversation. A forum set to discuss what parents say are ongoing issues in Baltimore County public schools.
We're working hard.
Turned at times into an emotional outpouring.
We're trying to help your kids do the best they can.
Teachers venting.
But we're exhausted.
no repercussions to the students doing anything.
Students talking fear.
There's a lot of assault, like sexual assault, physical assault, anything. Students really don't care.
Parents and even grandparents sharing stories of bullying and threats in county schools.
We are so concerned about our children.
And a new school video threatening violence emerges. This just yesterday, shared on social media. Pastor Charles Neal and his family say shows the chaos that erupted outside of Perry Hall High. The encounter, his 15-year-old niece holding a bat, he says, to protect herself from the bullies whose harassment they say she's endured for an entire year.
This sort of madness has to stop.
An unannounced mediation that they say ended with girls' administrators in tow following, still attacking the teen right in front of school officials.
And managed to get there and still attack them, spitting at them, and all sorts of things.
Rod McMillian, the only member of the Baltimore County School Board to attend. Pastor Neal said they showed up specifically to speak to school leadership and highlight the inaction on violence they believe is plaguing Baltimore County schools.
We're here to act as a voice, not just on behalf of my niece, but again, as I've indicated tonight, on behalf of a lot of other students, but can't, because they're living in fear. Either they're cutting classes or they're just not going to school because nothing is being done by the school administration.
Now, one of the organizers and speakers, Darren Badillo, did tell us that they did invite every member of the Baltimore County School Board and the superintendent to attend. Meantime, we have reached out to the superintendent and school officials multiple times about this issue of in-school violence. Back in April, the superintendent sent us a statement saying that violence is a complex issue. He went on to say that the school system is taking approaches which include disciplinary action and social emotional supports. Reporting live in Dundalk tonight, Riel Creighton, Fox 45 News.
Well, Fox 45 News is committed to investigating any problems that your kids run into, from teacher shortages to a lack of bus drivers. You can call our news tip line at 410-467-5595. You can also send us an email at news@foxbaltimore.com and chime in your pictures and videos on the Fox 45 News app.
More criticism for DPW tonight in the City Council's second hearing, holding the Department of Public Works accountable for the handling of the E. coli water contamination in West Baltimore. Now, council members asking where that contamination came from and why the public wasn't told sooner. Fox 45's Maxine Stryker has the details.
DPW does believe that several factors may have contributed to the contamination, but are placing the blame mostly on the city's aging infrastructure. As far as that communication breakdown, they had nothing but more excuses for the city council as to why it took so long to inform the West Baltimore community about the E. coli in their water. Labor Day, West Baltimore residents were alerted to E. coli in their water, and now the Department of Public Works and City Council have been working to get to the bottom of the crisis. At a second hearing Thursday, DPW explained to the council they may finally have an idea of where the contamination came from.
What this shows is that there are multiple factors that came together to create a scenario that likely contributed to the contamination in the area of impact. The large mains being out of service was the root cause, the Kirk Avenue valve repair, and the sinkhole on North Avenue.
It was those problems compromising the water line that they say led DPW to shut off the Vernon pump station, reverting supply from the area of impact to Lake Ashburton, lowering the chlorine levels in the water.
To recap, a series of DPW-related events and the decisions made by DPW to correct those events led to the contamination. Is that correct, Director?
It was a result of aging infrastructure, something that this city and all cities that are aged are dealing with. I wouldn't say it was a public works issue. It's a Mother Nature issue.
The other reason for Thursday's hearing was to better understand the communication failures that occurred and why the public wasn't informed sooner about the E. coli, and when they were told about it, why it was only on Twitter and Nextdoor.
Is there anybody from the communications department here?
No.
Is there a reason why? No, how many people work in the communications department?
We have 3 individuals.
3 people. And none of the 3 were available to come to the hearing?
Our goal today was to really show root cause, but we can get that information to you as soon as possible.
Councilman Yitchi Schleifer questioned why DPW's communication department couldn't be made available for the hearings, and if they could be in the future.
Well, this whole situation was a failure of communications. So had the communications department properly communicated to the public immediately and done so in the way that they do on many other things, we wouldn't have been here today.
Schleifer was told the communications team wouldn't come to a hearing and that the director could answer all the questions.
I mean, something does not add up. Why wouldn't the people who were so active and involved in this situation from the start, and also all the communication to the public, why they wouldn't be here is really mind-boggling.
Yolanda Winkler is the chief of the communications department for the Department of Public Works. We did reach out to her directly to see if she was asked to attend these hearings and are waiting to hear back. In Baltimore, Maxine Stryker, Fox 45 News.
3 months after a massive sinkhole opens up on North Avenue, destroying homes, construction is still underway and the road is closed. One of the affected homeowners tells Fox 45 News that he feels the city is ignoring his calls for help. He says insurance denied his claim, telling him the city is at fault for building on top of aging infrastructure. He says he tried reaching out to his councilman, Robert Stokes, but never heard back.
In my eyes, I shouldn't have to reach out to someone that I didn't cause this problem. Now, if it was my fault, trust and believe, it would be a problem. But when it's on the city, you don't hear nothing. And it just, to me, it seems like they're just dragging their feet, and that's not right.
Fox 45 News reached out to DPW for answers. They tell us they were in charge of repairs but not reimbursing homeowners. They directed Fox 45 to reach out to the mayor's office. We sent questions to the mayor's office, but so far we haven't heard back.
The wife of U.S. Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas appeared before the House panel investigating the January 6th insurrection. Ginni Thomas is a conservative activist. She agreed to the voluntary interview. The committee has been trying for months to speak with her. They want to know more about her communication with top Trump officials in the weeks after the election, including John Eastman, who came up with the theory that a vice president could overturn election results.
Her discussions and coordination and text messages to Mark Meadows, as well as specifically to John Eastman. She had conversations and was messaging John Eastman. We want to ask questions about that. We think that that's fair, and we plan to ask those questions of her.
Thomas did not answer any questions from reporters as she walked into the Capitol today, but said she looked forward to answering the committee's questions. Her attorney had said last week Thomas was eager to clear up misconceptions about her work surrounding the 2020 election.
Turning to your Vote 2022 coverage, in less than 6 weeks before Election Day, mail-in ballots are going out to Maryland voters, which started today. Ballots will be sent to Anne Arundel County voters starting tomorrow. Harford and Howard counties will be mailed out October 3rd. The board will mail ballots to Baltimore City on October 4th and Baltimore County on October 5th. Well, today, the Maryland Court of Special Appeals denied a motion from Republican gubernatorial candidate Dan Cox to stop mail-in ballots from being counted early. The Board of Elections can now start counting mail-in ballots on Saturday. Brad Bell with our Sinclair sister station in Washington talked with leaders from both sides of the aisle about the decision.
Maryland Democratic Party leaders today blasting Republican gubernatorial nominee Dan Cox's decision to continue fighting the State Board of Elections' request to begin counting mail-in ballots as early as this weekend, saying the Trump-endorsed Cox is following the former president's lead.
It's straight from his cult leader's playbook of deny and delay.
Republican Governor Larry Hogan also today for the first time publicly weighing in, questioning Cox's motives.
I don't really understand the reason for the challenge. I know that they're apparently still questioning the last election, which was a spread by about 1 million votes and 33 percentage points.
What caused all the fuss is the pandemic-induced explosion in the demand for mail-in ballots. To get them all canvassed in a timely fashion, the State Board of Elections asked for permission to count them as they come in rather than wait until after Election Day as Maryland law is written. Last week, a judge granted the request. Cox, who participated in efforts to overturn the 2020 presidential election, is appealing, claiming the judge exceeded his authority.
I stand with the Constitution for the people, because if we lose that, we lose the opportunity to have a voice.
Governor Hogan hoping Cox's appeal is rejected.
We did this in the last election. It was my idea, and we counted the votes. We didn't have a single problem with that, and I can't imagine why there'd be a problem this time.
In Annapolis, Brad Bell, Fox 45 News.
Stocks on Wall Street erased yesterday's gains. The Dow tumbled more than 450 points today. The S&P gave back 78 points. The Nasdaq fell 314. Investors are worried about economic growth and inflation. A third reading of second quarter GDP out today confirms 2 consecutive quarters of decline, which is by definition a recession. Wells Fargo Bank says it doesn't believe there is a recession now, but it expects one early next year. Meanwhile, weekly jobless claims hit a 5-month low, but it's a shortage of workers fueling inflation right now. Wages are rising, but pay apparently isn't keeping up with the high prices, which is central in Republican platforms less than 6 weeks before the elections.
Our citizens' buying power after inflation is lower today than it was the moment President Biden put his hand on the Bible.
President Biden is pushing back, saying if Republicans win in November, the first thing they'll do is repeal the Inflation Reduction Act, increasing drug prices.
U.S. mortgage rates have climbed for 6 weeks in a row, hitting their highest level in 15 years. Mortgage buyer Freddie Mac reports the average 30-year mortgage rate is now 6.7%. That is more than double the 3% rate last year, meaning the cost of borrowing to buy a home is thousands of dollars more today. There is no sign of that easing anytime soon as the Federal Reserve continues to raise its lending rates, forecasting another hike before the end of the year.
Well, 6 red states are suing the Biden administration to try and stop its plan to forgive student loan debt for tens of millions of Americans. Those states argue President Biden can't use the pandemic to justify the forgiveness since he declared it over in an interview this month. It's the second lawsuit this week challenging the president's loan cancellation plan. White House officials say they're confident it will survive legal hurdles.
The search for a man police say shot and killed a Baltimore father is intensifying. The latest on that case coming up in Maryland's Most Wanted.
And I am tracking Ian as it actually heads our direction just in time for the weekend. Here's a quick preview of exactly how much rainfall we're expecting. I'll break it down in more detail and let you know exactly what all this rain means for your outdoor weekend plans in a couple of minutes on Fox 45 News at 10.
Well, look at this incredible time lapse of the storm surge in Fort Myers Beach as we track Hurricane Ian. That home on the left side of your screen is completely ripped away, and when the tide subsided, only the front steps remain. Now, Hurricane Ian is gaining strength in the Atlantic with South Carolina in its tracks, then our area. Meteorologist Amy Aronson is here with the forecast with more on the track of this storm.
Yeah, exactly, Mary. And I actually want to start off talking about our rainfall for this month so far, and especially the weekends, because if you notice the weekends, they've actually all pretty much been dry. And of course, that's going to change this weekend. If we take a look at the numbers, I added it all up. Normally, for the month of September, we end up with just over 4 inches of rain. So far for this month, we're actually about an inch behind. Now, we are going to close out the month with a little bit of rain, especially tomorrow, but it looks like October is just going to start off with the wet weather. And that all has to do with this. We are tracking Ian back to hurricane status as that nears the Carolinas. That's where it's headed next. If I put this into motion, you can still see it's still drifting eastward. But eventually what's going to happen is it's going to curve back around to the north and west here. And then it's expected to make another landfall in South Carolina before finally weakening. So if I put this into motion with your future scan, you can see that's exactly what's going to happen tomorrow afternoon, sending them some heavy rain. And then heavy rain expected for both the Carolinas as we get into the day tomorrow. Now for us on the northern fringe of this, we've got high pressure actually building in from the north here, helping keep most of the rain to our south. Looks like the first showers will arrive right around 6 o'clock tomorrow, so right in time for your dinner plans. And then the heaviest stuff moves through overnight Friday through early Saturday morning. And with that big area of high pressure to our north, it's filtering in some dry air, and that's going to help us out a little bit. It's going to cause some of the heavier rain to push away from us, and we are left behind with just some on and off showers as we get through the afternoon on Saturday, and again on Sunday actually, some lingering on and off showers, but not a complete washout with heavy soaking rain all day long. So that's actually good news if you're headed out to the Ravens game come Sunday. Here's an updated look at exactly how much rain we're expecting in total. Looks like through the course of the system moving through, about 1 to 2 inches locally. The areas highlighted in yellow off to our south and east will see higher amounts, closer to 2-3 inches there. We could also see some gusty winds gusting up to 20-30 miles an hour. Tonight, it's just dry and cool. We're settling back into the low 60s right now. We're under that north-northeasterly wind at only 8 miles an hour. Next 3 days don't look quite as nice. We are tracking the rain moving in tomorrow evening, and then it's pretty much here to stay. The steadiest stuff comes through Saturday morning. After that, it's just damp and dreary with on and off showers both days and temperatures remaining in the cool mid and upper 60s. And that includes the Ravens game on Sunday. If you're headed out to M&T Bank Stadium, grab a rain jacket. You're going to want to have it with temperatures hanging out in the cool mid 60s throughout the game. A quick look ahead shows some spotty showers left over Monday and Tuesday, but after that, we're finally going to welcome back some sunshine by midweek, and that's going to help our temperatures warm back up to 70. Mary?
Amy, thank you. A reward for a fugitive wanted in a Baltimore father's murder has now doubled, and federal agents have joined the search for a man accused of sexually abusing a child. Here's Alexa Ashwell with this week's Maryland's Most Wanted.
Remember this Maryland's Most Wanted fugitive, Avery Miller? Police say he shot and killed a young Baltimore father back in August, and just days ago fired at police in D.C. as officers tried to take him into custody. The reward for information leading to Miller's capture has now doubled to approximately $55,000. Miller is accused of fatally shooting Aryeh Wolf in southeast D.C. August 10th. Police say Wolf was working in the neighborhood installing solar panels onto buildings when it happened. The young father and husband was well known in the Jewish community here in Baltimore. Investigators not yet releasing a motive. The search is now on for this man accused of raping a family member for years here in Baltimore. He's been on the run for the past 5 months, and now the U.S. Marshal Service needs your help tracking him down. April 2022, an 11-year-old girl reveals a secret to Baltimore police, one she's been keeping for about 6 years.
During the investigation, this child revealed that her family member had been raping her repeatedly from the time she was in first grade all the way up until she turned 11.
Investigators say this man, 44-year-old Neri Orlando Lopez Garcia, is her accused rapist. The alleged sexual assaults happening inside their home here in Brooklyn for years.
He spent years raping a minor child. Years. This was no accident. This is an intentional act, and children need to be protected against at all costs.
Al Maresca is a deputy marshal with the U.S. Marshal Service. The federal agency has now joined the search for Garcia after investigators say attempts to locate him have been unsuccessful.
This individual is in the United States illegally, and so police attempted to make contact with his family members, they made contact with the local community, and unfortunately the leads run dry.
Maresca stressing Garcia is a sexual predator who must be brought to justice.
This guy presents a clear and present danger.
Investigators believe Garcia may still be here in the Baltimore region or attempting to flee to Guatemala. If you have any information into his whereabouts, you're asked to contact the U.S. Marshals Service. A fugitive featured on Maryland's Most Wanted is now in custody. Investigators say someone recognized Maurice Coleman on our segment and led authorities to his location. Coleman was wanted for the rape of his ex-girlfriend. Investigators say he lied about his daughter and granddaughter being killed in Baltimore in order to get into the woman's home, then raped her at knife point when she confronted him with the truth. Police say Coleman was taken into custody by patrol officers here in Baltimore. No one was hurt. If you have any information into the whereabouts of any of the fugitives on our board, including Garcia, you're asked to contact the U.S. Marshals Service. The tip line number right here, 1-877-WANTED-2. Or you can contact Maresca directly. His number right here, 202-819-5058. Remember, you can always remain anonymous and you could earn a reward. I'm Alexa Ashwell, and this is Maryland's Most Wanted.
The old Legislative Services building in Annapolis is almost no more. Check out the new video from today. The building gutted since demolition began last month. A new building for the department will go up in its place and is expected to open in late 2024. The Capital Gazette reports $70 million has been allocated for the project so far. Well, ahead on the late edition of Johns Hopkins Police Town Hall goes virtual after last week's ended in protest. Why the move did not lead to a more peaceful meeting. And could this be the week? Ronnie Stanley was a full participant in practice for a second straight day. What he's saying about his status, that's coming up next.
Dropping one game happens, 2 in a row this time of year with the stakes as high as they are. That hurts, and it would only get worse for the O's. Birds wrapping up the season series with the Sox, looking to get back in the win column. Adley Rutschman with a double, because why not? 33rd double of the year, passes Cal Ripken Jr. for the most doubles all time for an O's rookie. This dude can play. Kyle Stowers tied it in the 7th. J.D. Martinez in the 8th with a go-ahead homer you see right there. O's fall 5-3. They're currently 5 games back. Ravens nose tackle Michael Pierce has elected to undergo surgery, season-ending surgery for a torn bicep suffered in Sunday's game. As a result, the team has placed him on the injured reserve. Through 3 games, Pierce has registered 6 tackles and a forced fumble. Offensively, Ronnie Stanley was a full participant in practice for the 2nd straight day. Due to an ankle injury, Stanley hasn't played a football game since week 1 of last year. But that could all change this Sunday when the Ravens take on the Bills.
Yeah, this could very possibly be the week, so I'm very close, and we'll talk it over with, the rest of the staff and coaches and whatnot, and we're going to make the best decision that's best for the team.
Well, coming up tonight, what the O's are saying following another loss, plus Dunbar and Mervo went head-to-head. Which team is staying undefeated under the Thursday night lights when Sports Unlimited returns?
Rocco, thanks. Ahead on the late edition, as Florida recovers, many of the injured will be in need of blood. How damage in the state is hampering those efforts right now. And remember this, nearly a decade later, how a virtual internet trend is leading to progress in the fight against a deadly disease. Well, fall fun can come with fall allergies. As many as 60 million people suffer from symptoms of seasonal allergies. This time of year, ragweed and mold are in full force. Experts say dealing with allergies might start with your pet, especially if they go outside.
If you are sleeping with them, you are basically sleeping with some weeds that are outdoors. So I usually ask my patients to keep the pets out of their bedroom, especially during their really big times of the year.
Well, experts recommend using over-the-counter treatments like nasal sprays and antihistamines to deal with allergy symptoms. If those don't work, they recommend going to see an allergist.
Protesters crash at Johns Hopkins Town Hall for a second time. How a plan for campus police has become a polarizing topic. A meeting of Baltimore County parents and students changes course. Why violence became the central focus of tonight's town hall.
It's going to be a long road to recovery. I mean, there's a lot that needs to be fixed.
Destruction from coast to coast in Florida. Fox 45 News assesses the damage as Hurricane Ian makes its way north.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News Late Edition.
Stunning scenes out of Florida. At least a dozen have died in what President Biden says could be the deadliest hurricane in Florida's history. Hurricane Ian now has its sights set on the Carolinas, and fears of the storm have already canceled some events in Maryland. Good evening, I'm Kai Jackson. More on the storm in just a moment. We begin with Baltimore's ongoing crime crisis. Nearly a dozen people were shot over the past 2 days, and plans for campus police on Johns Hopkins is being met with backlash. Jeff Abel starts our team coverage.
Well, there was far more disruption than discussion at Hopkins tonight. In fact, 30 minutes after many people arrived, they were heading right back home. For the second time, the university opened its doors for a town hall meeting. But not everyone in town was interested in meeting.
Excited to talk to you today.
Johns Hopkins administrators were prepared to answer questions about plans to form a police department, a dedicated armed police force to tackle crime that's creeping into the Baltimore campuses.
We're impacted by assaults, we're impacted by robberies, and even murders here on our East Baltimore campus. I have individuals who come here to work who are afraid to come from the parking garage into the building.
There's already incidences of university police going beyond their reach. I know people personally have been discriminated, and introducing guns into that equation is not a good idea.
But just like a similar meeting last week, protesters turned up the volume again tonight, even shielding the big screen projector where no one could view administrators who were addressing the crowd.
I'm not going to say they're crazy, they've been misguided.
I respect their ability to protest and make their noise and do what they did, but let everybody else come out and have a voice at a town hall meeting.
Have you been interfering in that respect?
That's understandable, but there's way more residents who don't want the police.
After 30 minutes, the university shut down its auditorium, allowing the meeting to continue online. Many residents who came here for an education went home with a new round of frustration.
They're not shutting nobody down. They're not shutting Johns Hopkins down, because when people really see what's really going on, they're going to want to be safe. They're not safe.
There will be one final town hall meeting tomorrow night. This one will be all virtual all the time. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
We're learning more about a shooting at a bus stop near Mondawmin Mall this afternoon. Police say two kids were fighting on the bus when one pulled a gun and shot the other. That person is in the hospital. The other was taken into custody. Today's shooting and the recent shooting at Fells Point has residents and city leaders looking for answers.
The whole city, not just one neighborhood.
This is a very difficult task. We're dealing with violence in a city that we've been dealing with for multiple decades. We're not going to come in and change this overnight.
Despite the rise in violence, the deputy mayor for public safety says crime is trending in the right direction.
Today, Baltimore is one homicide under last year. We started the month at, I believe, 52 shootings, non-fatal. Today, we're at 38 maybe, so there's a reduction. I base how I view things on the data, and that data says that we're going in the right direction.
Deputy Mayor Anthony Barksdale says there is still room for progress. One of his main goals is transparency from the mayor and City Hall. Fox 45 News is tracking Hurricane Ian on the top left. Flooding in Iona, Florida. Some of the storm surge never made it back to the ocean. On the top right, the causeway connecting Sanibel Island and the mainland is washed away. It stranded residents, limiting rescue opportunities. And on the bottom right, on the bottom there on the left, I believe, Folly Beach, South Carolina, that's near Charleston, is getting hammered. Meteorologist Amy Aronson is tracking Ian with the 11 p.m. update from the National Hurricane Center. Amy?
Yeah, and it is showing some signs of strengthening, Kai, up to max sustained winds now of 80 miles an hour, still Category 1 in strength. But you'll notice the outer rain bands are now reaching the Carolinas, and that's exactly where it's headed next. Right now, it is still headed north-northeastward at 10 miles an hour, but eventually it's going to curve back in. And the latest track update from the National Hurricane Center also shows that. It is showing that landfall that's expected tomorrow, actually near Charleston. Because of that, hurricane warnings already posted for the shoreline of South Carolina up into North Carolina because that's where the storm is headed. Eventually, it will weaken as it moves over land, becoming a tropical storm and then just a remnant low. But that's when it actually becomes our problem. And this is what it means for our weekend. Our first rain showers from it will arrive Friday evening. The heaviest rain overnight Friday into early Saturday with 1 to 3 inches expected. After that, just on and off showers for the rest of the weekend. Plus, it's going to be cool and breezy with winds gusting at 20 to 30 miles an hour. Now, coming up in 15 minutes, I've got an updated look at our future scan. I'll take you through that hour by hour and let you know exactly when you will be able to squeeze in some outdoor plans this weekend. Back to you.
Thank you, Amy. We're already starting to see preparations for Ian in Maryland. Ocean City's annual Oceans Festival has been canceled. You can see crews picking up the entrance scanners here as they get that news. Now, the Fells Point Fun Festival in Baltimore has been postponed as well. The new dates will likely be October 28th through the 30th.
Now, a Fox 45 News Alert in 3, 2, 1.
Tonight, Johns Hopkins University is responding to the indictment of one of its employees for allegedly trying to assist the Russian war effort. The school says Dr. Anna Gabrielin has now been placed on leave. Investigators say she and her spouse, Dr. Jamie Lee Henry, attempted to give private health information of government employees to the Russians. The pair thought they were meeting a Russian spy in Baltimore in August, but it turns out it was an undercover FBI agent. Fox 45's Amy Simpson has been following this story very extensively. Her full report is available on foxbaltimore.com.
In Baltimore County, a coalition of parents and students held a meeting to discuss a wide range of issues. Personal accounts of threats and bullying within the school system were shared. And new video threatening violence was released tonight and has parents, students, even grandparents on edge. A 15-year-old girl holding a bat, her uncle says, just to protect herself.
There's a lot of assault, like sexual assault, physical assault, anything. Students really don't care. No repercussions to the students doing anything.
Well, activists say they came to the meeting to speak directly with school leaders, but only one member of Baltimore County School Board was in attendance. Still ahead, the Baltimore Department of Public Works faces backlash for its handling of the E. coli crisis, how they defended their response. And a live look at Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, in the path of Hurricane Ian. Much more on the damage caused by the storm coming up. Here's a look at today's top trending stories. Number one, Baltimore City Council is holding a second hearing with the Department of Public Works, asking why the public wasn't informed about the E. coli situation sooner. DPW feels several factors may have contributed to the Labor Day weekend contamination, placing the blame on Baltimore's aging infrastructure. But none of the DPW's 3 communications employees was at the hearing, prompting this reaction from Councilman Yitchi Schleifer.
Something does not add up. Why wouldn't the people who were so active and involved in this situation from the start, and also all the communication to the public, why they wouldn't be here is really mind-boggling.
DPW officials did say they may be able to pinpoint where the contamination originated. They say valve repair on Kirk Avenue and a sinkhole on North Avenue played a role. Number two, a convicted murderer escapes a Las Vegas prison but didn't get far. Take a look at this. The inmate arrested while trying to get on a bus to Mexico. You can see the cops cuffing him right at the front door. The man had been on the run since Friday. Police say he used battery acid to weaken his cell window before breaking out. Number three, that bucket of ice that you poured on yourself 8 years ago may be paying off, believe it or not. Remember this, the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge? It took social media by storm back in 2014, raising awareness of Lou Gehrig's disease. Well, now the FDA has approved a new therapy for the disease. The drug is still in its experimental phase, but it's known to slow the devastating paralysis of ALS. Florida's Gulf Coast got the worst of Hurricane Ian, but the Atlantic coast is also starting to see damage. How residents who rode out the storm are handling the aftermath.
And our rain chances are about to increase as what's left of Ian actually heads our direction this weekend. We see the first showers late tomorrow night, and then they increase in coverage as we get into Saturday. I've got an updated look at the timeline of the showers, and I'll let you know exactly how much rain we're expecting in a couple of minutes on the Late Edition.
is my community. This is my home. It's not only for my pain, it's for everybody's pain. I'm terrified for everybody. It's not only all our trailers, it's half of Cape Coral, it's half of everywhere.
It is a long road to recovery for Florida's southwest coast as Hurricane Ian leaves a trail of devastation. This was the scene along the Sanibel Island Causeway, the only road in and out of the island, and we showed this to you. It's been ripped apart, and that stranded residents who stayed. As for Ian, well, the storm is now bearing down on Georgia and the Carolinas. First, we go to Daytona Beach, proof that Hurricane Ian isn't just impacting the Gulf Coast or west side of Florida. Paige Hubbard shows us the damage on the Atlantic side of Florida.
I have no words, honestly.
Tropical Storm Ian's strong winds swept through Volusia County, causing power outages, damage, and destruction. Jeanette Lombardo is the manager of this Cyberfuels gas station in Daytona. She returned to her place of work to find devastation. The windows are blown out and part of the roof ripped off.
This is my livelihood. I mean, I've got to get it back in order.
Kevin Callis evacuated from Largo, Florida to Daytona Beach. He tells us he was trying to get away from the storm, but feels the eye followed him right to Volusia County.
About 150 feet of beach out there just disappeared. Everything started to come in, and it's raised. We were on the third floor. Well, that window, door wall type hurricane glass had failed, and it was taking on water, so they moved us to another room, and we no sooner than got in there, and the electrical from the top started falling down, and the roof peeled back.
And how has this storm been for you?
It's been really powerful. We did not expect the winds to be this high. They were saying 45 miles per hour. But I can tell you from the residents that live here in Daytona Beach Shores, if you live beachside, the winds were at least 70 to 75 miles per hour on beachside.
Dawn Petrie shared she didn't evacuate thinking the storm wouldn't be as powerful as it proved to be. She's now hunkering down, waiting for the storm to pass. As it heads for South Carolina, Hurricane Ian is leaving millions of Floridians without power. Many are now looking towards the restoration process.
It's going to be a long road to recovery. I mean, there's a lot that needs to be fixed. We've got a roof blown off, everything, and we've lost everything in the store.
Paige Hubbard reporting in Volusia County.
And here's meteorologist Amy Aronson with an update. Amy.
Yeah, we're tracking Ian now as it heads towards South Carolina, North Carolina, and Georgia overnight. Already the outer bands reaching there. Back to hurricane status as a Category 1 storm, actually strengthening slightly up to max sustained winds of 80 miles an hour. And that's going to continue to be the case as it heads towards the Carolina coast overnight, actually making another landfall there tomorrow. Now, for us, we see that area of high pressure to our north. That's going to help block most of the heavy rain from us, but for the southeast, they're in for a soaking. And Future Scan shows that as the storm makes landfall there tomorrow, not only will winds be an issue, they're also looking at the potential for a storm surge of 2 to 6 feet. And then they've got this very heavy rain. That means flooding also going to be an issue there, even as the system moves on shore. Yes, it'll weaken, but look at all the heavy rain it's spreading across the Carolinas into North Carolina and eventually Virginia. And for us, we'll actually see the first showers tomorrow evening, right around 6 o'clock. The heaviest rain moves through overnight Friday into early Saturday. After that, that area of high pressure to our north sends us some drier air, and then we're just tracking on and off showers. Now, it's not going to be a completely dry weekend. It's actually going to be cloudy, damp, dreary, breezy, and cool. So not great for outdoor plans, but not a complete washout either, especially Sunday. Sunday, we are just left behind with some really spotty showers here. We are stuck under the clouds. It's going to be a little breezy, plus it's going to be cooler. A quick look at how much rain we're expecting locally, about 2 inches over the course of the next 3 days. I think higher amounts as you travel further south and east. That's where we see the bright yellows and oranges there. How about our wind speeds? Now, we know winds are going to be pretty powerful for the Carolinas as that storm makes that landfall. For us, not quite that bad, but it's still going to be breezy out there. We get wind gusts tomorrow at 20, 25 miles an hour, and then a little higher as we head through Saturday morning. I think that's when the winds peak as that rain really pushes through, and then winds will stay gusting at 15, 20 miles an hour through much of the weekend. Tonight, we're up to 10 miles an hour. It is cool out there tonight with increasing clouds. We're hanging out in the low 60s right now. For your Friday, I would knock out any of the fall things you want to do outside. Great day to maybe get the pumpkin, at least during the daylight hours. I think by tomorrow evening, 6, 7 o'clock, we are tracking the first showers. And that's just the beginning of a pretty damp and dreary weekend, plus a cooler one. We'll be in the mid-60s on Saturday with on and off showers. Same for Sunday. If you're headed out to the Ravens game, certainly pack the rain jacket. You're going to want to have it with you. We are left behind with spotty showers actually all the way through Monday and Tuesday as this system finally wraps out of here. After that, we'll dry things out and temperatures will actually be warming back up. So after a long, cool stretch that takes us through Tuesday, looks like we're getting close to 70 again by next Wednesday and Thursday. Kai?
As the aftermath of the storm continues to spread across the country, blood donations desperately needed. I'm Liz Bonas. We share more on how we can all make a difference. It is just ahead.
As we follow Hurricane Ian's path, healthcare providers are worried about how it could impact the nation's blood supply. Medical reporter Liz Bonas has the story.
Hey there, everybody. Hello to you. It is something that we all can do as this storm continues to have a ripple effect across the country. The need for blood and blood products never stops. That's why about a week ago, as predictions started to ramp up for Hurricane Ian, blood centers across the country were notified.
In the United States, there's a great history of blood centers kind of banding together.
Dr. David O. of Ohio's Hawksworth Blood Center told me centers like his got the plea for donors.
So the blood is ready when we need it.
And as donors did begin to answer that call,
1 hour of your time means a lifetime for somebody else.
The storm began to set in. It's hard now to predict how the stock of blood they have will stack up.
If we have a case come through the emergency room, we have trauma level 1, hospital right here, you go through 100 blood products, in a night.
Those products, from platelets for burn victims to whole blood for emergency surgeries, likely to be needed not just in the Florida center of the storm, but in areas that will get its aftermath of wind and rain. A loss of power impacts the ability to store whole blood. Flooding can likely shift patient care to other area hospitals, which may not be as prepared with enough supply.
So there's a little bit of a compatibility issue and availability to use the supply of blood that we have.
So as the stock gets shipped and shared this week, no matter where you live, the backup blood supply is likely to be in need of a backup. The plea right now?
If you're looking for a way to give back and you don't really know what to do, donate blood.
To donate blood, you need to just be healthy, weigh at least 110 pounds, and be at least 17 years old, or in some cases 16 with a parent's permission. I'm medical reporter Liz Bonus. Now back to you.
As Hurricane Ian recovery efforts continue in Florida, the American Red Cross is making an impact. Maryland and Virginia already have volunteers in the Sunshine State.
What we have on the ground right now are just over 500 volunteers and staff. So they mobilized this past weekend, not just the folks, but the resources, the materials, the vehicles, all of those things have been mobilized ahead of the storm.
If you'd like to help, you can donate directly on the Red Cross website or text the word Ian to 90999 to make a $10 donation. A battle of the undefeateds at Morgan State as Dunbar and Mervo met on the gridiron to find out which team's record would remain spotless. Finally tonight, a huge boost for schools looking for opportunities outside the classroom. Let's take a look at the Chesapeake Bay under the Francis Scott Key Bridge. As a crow flies, I guess we're looking a little south and east, right? Well, 10 Maryland congressmen teamed up to provide almost $700,000 to schools, allowing them to hold outdoor lessons about the Chesapeake Bay and conservation. NOAA's Chesapeake Bay Watershed Education Program helped fund that grant. That's all for us on the late edition. I'm Kai Jackson. Here's Rocco DeSangro with Sports Unlimited. Rocco.
Yeah, Kai, the odds may not be in the O's favor right now, but Wednesday night, following the team's second straight loss, you can tell that this ball club still believes. Birds wrapping up the season series with the Sox, looking to get back in the win column. Adley Rutschman with a double, because why not? 33rd double of the year, passes Cal Ripken Jr. for the most doubles all time for an O's rookie. This dude right here can play. Third inning. O's with a 1-0 lead. Anthony Santander hits a routine grounder, and Tristan Costa goes full Bill Buckner. Birds take a 2-0 lead on the play. Sox would tie it in the fourth. thanks to an RBI single from Kike Hernandez, and they would take the lead in the 6th. The 7th we go. Kyle Stowers, no stranger to game-tying home runs late in the game. His 3rd of the year knots it at 3. Some chaos. But in the 8th, J.D. Martinez with a 2-run monster blast. And the O's drop their 3rd straight, 5-3, the final score.
Yeah, things didn't necessarily go our way, but, you know, there's a lot of baseball left, and we're looking to get back on our feet this next series in New York.
You know, sometimes you just get unlucky. You know, we're a very process-oriented team, and we're just going to continue to learn, move on, come out with energy tomorrow.
So with the O's loss to the Red Sox, the Blue Jays clinched a wild card berth. Baltimore needs to win and hope that Seattle and Tampa Bay lose a few games. The O's are 5 games back. Their elimination number is down to 2. Chicago and Minnesota, see the E's next to their name. They've both been eliminated. Ronnie Stanley healthy, a scary sight for opposing defenses. And the Ravens left tackle hopes that he can return to his all-pro form. But his return to the field, as expected, has been a process. And Stanley has made progress. The 28-year-old former first-round pick was a full participant in practice both Wednesday and Thursday. We'll see if that's the case tomorrow as well. And if it does happen, it would mark his first full week of practice this offseason. There's a chance that we might even see him play this week.
I think it's gone really well. Like you said, we don't want to rush things. We want to make sure that I'm able to play and to be here for the whole season. And I think things are going really well. Things are going according to plan. And I think, you know, I want to be out there. I want to be out there as soon as I can. And the whole organization is kind of, you know, taking this approach, and we're all on the same page about it, and making sure I'm ready to go when I do get out there. And, you know, I'm itching to get out there with my teammates, and I'm really close. I'm really close.
I mean, that's good to hear if you're a Ravens fan. After being snubbed for AFC Offensive Player of the Week, Lamar Jackson did one better. He was named AFC Offensive Player of the entire month. The Ravens star quarterback has passed for 749 yards and 10 touchdowns, while rushing for 243 yards and 2 touchdowns. Jackson is leading the league in total touchdowns and passer rating. He has been phenomenal to start the season. How about some high school football with a view? Check that out. Mervo and Dunbar going head-to-head at Morgan State in a battle of unbeatens. Defense playing lights out early on. Tip drill, Jannard Lockhart with the pick, and 5 has reservations for 6. Check out the celebration, too, with the ref. Perfect form on the touchdown signal. Dunbar looking to answer. Savion Witherspoon feeding his receiver, Tony Hart, across the middle, and he shows some heart on the big pickup. He's finally pushed out of bounds at around the 5, and that sets this up. Tristan Keenan going to work on the direct snap, in for the score. You got to trust me here. He's at the bottom of the pile across the goal line. Poets led 8-6 at the half, and it's Dunbar remaining undefeated with a 24-20 victory. Well, that's it for this edition of Sports Unlimited. I'm Rocco DeSangro. Thanks for watching, and have a great night.